There's a lot of cinematic potential in survival stories, even if the film turns out good or bad. Whether it's the 99% true account of a wilderness explorer, hiker, climber dude that ends up stuck with his arm underneath a freaking boulder and has to cut it off to escape, or the terrifyingly realistic and visually striking story of two astronauts stuck floating through space, only tethered to each other with seldom hope of returning to Earth, or even the story of a young Indian boy heading to the US that ends up on a capsized boat, stuck on a raft with a freaking tiger. Survival movies are a tried and true genre, with these and plenty of more proving just how great, cinematic, and moving these survival stories can actually be. To a lesser extent, you could even mention films like The Shallows or Crawl, which offer up a great premise and add plenty of excitement and tension to get you through the one location that these movies take place in, and to get you to a cathartic and happy ending, even if the journey there is a little uneven and those movies aren't as great as they could be. That brings me to the film I'm going to talk about today, with our protagonist being stranded 2,000 feet in the air with no hope of getting down. Hi everybody, Anthony from Awesome Anthony Productions here, and today I'm going to be giving you my review of Scott Mann's Fall. But before I do that, please go ahead and subscribe and make sure to ring the bell so that you never miss any of my content. I post new movie reviews every week, along with shorts, which I also post to my Instagram and TikTok, which you can find in the description below. Now let's climb this freaking tower, shall we? Fall centers on climbing enthusiast Hunter, played by Virginia Gardner, and Becky, played by Grace Caroline Curry. The movie takes place about a year after Becky lost her husband, Dan, played by Mason Gooding, in a climbing accident. To help her move on and stop blowing off her dad, played by a literally blink and you'll miss him Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Hunter takes Becky to the abandoned B67 TV tower with one goal: get to the top. The only problem is, this abandoned tower is pretty rusted, and the screws are nowhere near as tight as they used to be. So when they get to the top, have their chill time, and then start to come back down, the ladder that stretches the entire length of the tower breaks and falls, leaving them stranded at the top.
Oh my God,
Oh, and I mentioned it's 2,000 feet tall, right? Right away, I will give props to the production designers, the cinematographers, and the rest of the crew, because for just a $3 million movie, this movie looks pretty damn good. Yes, there are some obviously green screen shots that you can pick out in a second, and the occasional use of CGI is a little wonky, but the decision to build a 100-foot tower on top of a 2,000-foot mountain to film on was absolutely freaking genius. Yes, the leads really filmed on top of a 100-foot tower, and the 2,000-foot height of the mountain that tower was on really does wonders with forcing the perspective of them being that high up in the air, especially when the camera pans and shows miles around in every direction. By the way, 100 feet may not seem that tall compared to 2,000, but these actresses were basically standing on the top of a 10-story tower, pretty much on something the width of a big dinner plate, for hours, every single day, and I have to applaud them for that. I mean, not only does it look pretty freaking convincing for the film, but the dedication of the cast and crew is definitely something to be applauded. The camera work really elevates this film too, giving us a surprising variety of angles and movements for such a limited location, while utilizing every trick in the cinema book to convince your brain that these women are up 2,000 feet in the air. And the different obstacles that they face on the tower and the way that they enact their different plans to get help and get down actually are pretty interesting and breaks up the runtime a little bit, considering they're stuck in one location for most of the film. It doesn't really feel like it gets that repetitive. And the climax, oh my god. After a batshit crazy, yet kind of predictable twist that I guessed about 20 minutes before it was revealed, this movie dials the craziness up to 11 fast, and definitely leaves an impact, but not necessarily the impact that the filmmakers might have wanted. Also, notice how I said climax, not ending. That's because the ending sucks, but I'll get to that. Now that I brought up something bad, let's get into the bad stuff, because unfortunately, though I had some praise for this movie, there's a lot of bad. The writing. My god, the writing. The writing is so freaking bad in this movie, and it really pains me to say that, because so much of this movie is exciting, tense, kind of fun, and visually compelling. But from the very, very beginning, when we see Becky and Hunter climbing with Dan in the accident that takes his life, the dialogue is cookie cutter and cliche, and it really robs the beginning and Dan's death of any emotional impact they could have had. This continues through to Grace Caroline Curry's wooden acting and terrible impression of a drunk, to the half-baked introduction of Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character.
A horrible thing happened to you. I just want you to be able to move on with your life.
All the way through to the screams, arguments, and uplifting pep talks that are had on top of the tower. The writing's just bad through most of it. All of it feels CW level, and the lackluster delivery from Curry and Virginia Gardner really only serves to make that more of a glaring problem. Oh, and before I go any further, I should probably bring up the villain. Yo, what? There's a villain in Fall, a movie about two women stranded on top of the tower? That's crazy! Yeah, well, the villain might not be what you're thinking. Gardner's character, Hunter, is the absolute worst. She gaslights and manipulates her emotionally vulnerable friend into doing things she doesn't want to do almost constantly.
I haven't climbed since...
Becky, if you don't confront your fears, you are always going to be afraid.
She speaks in nothing but vaguely supportive and uplifting messages. She broadcasts a completely fabricated and kind of douchey personality to all of her online followers. And she even has a few moments throughout the movie that reveal just how awful of a person is and an even shittier friend. Oh, and that's without even mentioning the fact that this expert ignores all of the warning signs and red flags of climbing that tower and decides to do it anyways. Yet, for some reason, the movie paints her as a hero. She's getting Becky out of bed. She's helping her find her purpose again, while giving her the strength to survive this terrifying situation. You're the reason we're in this situation in the first place! Couldn't we have just started with rock climbing or something? Some people may hear me say all of that and think that I missed the point and that the movie wasn't trying to glorify her or paint her in a positive light, but that really didn't come across. Gardner's performance also leaves a lot to be desired too. She's kind of just monotone throughout the movie, and when she needs to cry and bring some emotion, it doesn't really land at all. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Hunter. So how's the other star of this film? Curry's Becky. Well, I mentioned before that her acting was wooden, and yeah, it's pretty wooden. She can cry, yeah, and she cries a lot in the movie, but there's really not much behind it, and I wasn't really ever that convinced that she was truly terrified and scared for her life. She does a little better in the last act and starts to come alive a little bit, but then the movie just freaking ends. So I never really ended up enjoying her character between the wooden performance and the awful dialogue. Speaking of the ending, this ending is like if someone took Avengers Endgame, threw it into Premiere, cut from the second that Hulk snaps, skipped through all of the ending battle, all of the portal stuff, and just went right to Tony's funeral. It feels rushed, and it's a complete tease just to have a fake-out emotional moment. And honestly, it left me feeling kinda mad and disappointed. These are far from the only problems that the movie has, but so much of it just comes down to the writing. You also have to completely suspend your disbelief in a few scenes, especially when we get to the over-the-top climax, and you'll need to try your best to ignore some glaringly dumb decision made by these supposed expert climbers.
I think I can drop myself lower.
What the f- Like the fact that they climb this tower with virtually no safety gear. Just a 50-foot tether attached to each other. Apparently not realizing that if one of them falls, that tether's just gonna pull the other one right down with them. I'm no professional climber or anything, but I did plenty of it throughout my childhood as a Boy Scout, and this movie makes it clear that no one working on it really understood anything about climbing. No safety gear, no belays, no appropriate clothing, one tiny little water bottle for the two of them. Not to mention the fact that Becky's character apparently spent the last year binge drinking and doing no physical activity, yet she can climb this 2,000-foot tower like it's nothing. Okay, I'm just now realizing that it sounds like I really hated this movie, and I didn't. I just didn't really like it all that much either. That's thanks to the atrocious CW quality writing, lack of realism, bland and wooden performances, complete tease of a disappointing ending, and for having one of the most unlikable leads I've seen in a long time. Though it is saved from being a complete bomb thanks to the fantastic production design, set pieces, and cinematography, along with just enough gritty and visceral survival stuff that we enjoy to watch in these kind of movies. There's also the fact that the last act of this movie has a crazy, if a little predictable twist that turns the movie headfirst into a collision course with over-the-top territory, with pretty interesting results. That may work or may not work for you, but for someone like me who was already not really enjoying the movie and getting kind of bored at that point, and it was just the adrenaline rush that this film needed. I don't even think this is in theaters anymore since I watched it at home, but I just streamed it through a free website, and I kind of recommend you do the same. Or maybe do a digital or a Rentbox rental and spend a couple bucks. I wouldn't pay full price for it. Anyway, that's my review of Fall. If you enjoyed this review or found it helpful, or even just want to talk about the movie, please go ahead and leave a like and comment below. While you're there, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you can never miss any of my content, whether it's my videos, shorts, or content that I post in my TikTok and Instagram. Oh, by the way, the links for those are also in the description below. You can also click or tap on these cards here. They'll take you to my review of Bodies, 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 or to my channel where you can see my movie reviews, shorts, and my old shit. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay awesome, everybody. By the way, you may notice that I said freaking throughout a lot of this video instead of just dropping the F-bomb, which I've been known to do before. Well, that's actually in honor of this movie. To get a PG-13 instead of an R rating, they actually used deepfake technology to go into the movie and change the actresses' faces and words so that they said freaking instead of the F word. They removed like over 30 F-bombs that way, so I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't notice it at all. Yeah, Awesome Anthony out.